Hello, my name is Bryan Taunton, and I would appreciate the opportunity to serve you as City Councilman, District 5. A vote for me will be a vote to provide unity in our City Council with a special focus on increasing industry and retail centers so that we may provide for the many social programs and amenities our community desperately needs. Remember, for integrity, unity, hope, service, vote for Bryan Taunton, City Council, District 5 on August 28th.
We're spending a few minutes with Bryan Taunton, candidate for Sylacauga City Council District 5 in the Sylacauga City Municipal Elections on August the 28th. First of all, Bryan, thanks for being with us, and I hope things are well.
Thank you. I'm very blessed and happy to be here.
Talk a little bit about who Bryan Taunton is, about your family, and a little background, if you would.
Well, I'm, of course, a proud citizen of our community of Sylacauga. And basically I grew up right here in Sylacauga. My family moved here in the early 1970s. At the time I was, I think, midway through the second grade. And I've gone all the way through the Sylacauga school system. I married a hometown girl, was Laura Epperson now, and I'm one of those lucky guys that married way up. And she's an office manager for Dr. Hamo here in town. Have two children. Lauren, who is 21, is now a senior at Sanford University. I have a son, Hunter, who is 19, and he is attending CAC. Will finish this year and transfer to UAB. Mm-hmm. A lot of people know me, but and growing up around here and knew my family through the chicken business and Kentucky Fried Chicken. I grew up came through the ranks. I mean, Dad, he wasn't easy on any of us, and I remember as a young boy, working for $1.75 an hour. That man, I was making some money and standing on a Coke box and bread and chicken. He didn't. Dad never, he didn't just give us money. We had to earn it. And that's what we did. We went to work in the KFCs, and I stayed, I guess, in the KFC business until about 1990, 91, something like that. And then decided that I wanted to, kind of make my own go at it. Laura and I had moved to Clanton and ran that business, got it up and going very well. And the bottom line was it wasn't challenging enough for me. Later years, I'd find out the real reason. I'll touch on that in a minute. But then, I went to work with a company called Hickory River Plantations, and at that point in time, I worked my way up through the ranks there and became vice president of administration with that company. And with them, we opened 22 offices in I think it was 12 different states across the nation, and my primary job was I was vice president of administration, and so my job would be to actually oversee the employees. I would go into when we opened a new location, I would go in, buy all the permits, get everything brought up to code. I would hire the employees, get that office up and running, and then I went to another location and opened up there, and eventually became kind of a troubleshooter for the company. And then in 1995, I kind of fell into a niche that I really enjoyed, and I know it's hard to look at me now and picture folks, but I was actually, Jimmy, a personal fitness instructor.
I remember that.
So for almost 15 years, full time, I started a company called Stay Fit up in Birmingham, and a gym there called at that time was called Sportplex, and began my personal training career and began a competitive career in powerlifting, and just continued to grow. At one time I was running 80, 90 clients That business continued to grow until the new Gold's Gym came into town there in Birmingham, and they came to me with a proposition. They had never had an in-house personal training program, and asked could I put it together. So they offered me a full-time position. I went there, and basically we went to work there and went from zero to over $60,000 a month in revenue just from personal training. That didn't include outside sales that we brought in. So, I mean, I understand how to increase the bottom line. I understand how to create a niche market and reach out to a niche community. And God's given me a lot of good experience through that. The end result, in all, was He was leading me. I believe He was leading me on a course of service for my life. And of course, now I'm in full-time ministry, and I'm pastor of Christ Point Community Church. And, you know, I can understand the unique challenges that we're facing as a city because I've been out there and I've engaged with the people now, and I've been able to walk down enough paths, develop enough business and systems of operation that I believe I'm capable of helping this city become what it can be and reach its full potential.
Now, we're visiting with Bryan Taunton, candidate for Sylacauga City Council District 5. There was quite a large number of people who wanted you to run for mayor, and why did you choose not to, and what prompted you to run for Sylacauga City Council District 5?
Well, you know, it'd be a great honor to obviously to serve in the capacity of mayor for our city, but you know, I believe the individual that's going to fill that position of mayor has got to be ready to give that their full-time attention. And let's not pull any punches here. I'm pastor of a new church plant. I didn't believe it was right to step up in that capacity at this time when I had a church that needed my attention. And at the same time, when we have a city that desperately needs a man sitting in that mayor's seat that is willing to give his full-time attention to the city. I knew I wasn't the man for the job at this time. And it just didn't fit. Just the timing simply wasn't right. But it was a great honor to be asked.
3 candidates that are running in District 5, you being one of those. Why should people vote for Bryan Taunton over the other 2 candidates?
Man, that's a tough question. I think well, let's just look at the surface. You know, without getting too deep, you know, I think we could all probably agree that just in this day and time, there must be some form of technical savvy to an individual's business plan and plan of operation to go out and work in today's economy, and to be able to communicate through the various social means that are now out there, such as your Facebook, your Twitter, smartphones, text messaging, all these. You know what? That's required to be able to do business today. Now that does not make Bryan Taunton the best candidate or capable of doing the job of city council, but it does show that because I do understand those things, I do understand those technologies, I understand how to work in today's market, I understand how to network in today's market, and I believe that's something that my opponents simply don't have. They don't have the ability to function in today's market. But I mean, if you can't run and I'm not being negative against them, it's not my intent, but if you can't even run a Facebook page, something as simple as that, how do we expect to be able to make our community competitive in a market that we live in today that is so social network oriented?
I've seen your election website, www.bryantaunton.com, and your election page on Facebook, and you have this 7-point strategy that you designed to talk about meeting the needs of that community. Obviously, you put a great deal of time and study into this. What made you put it together, and where did the idea come from?
Well, let me take the your last question first, if that's okay. As far as where the idea came from, as a citizen of our community, and having lived here and watched and seen the things that our city is dealing with, and the needs that it has, I don't think it's complicated to sit down and begin to map out a plan. Again, that's what I did. That's what I've done in the companies that I've worked for in the secular life. And even now as a church, I'm pastoring a new church startup. That's a ground up operation. And I really believe that's where we are. We've got to come back and we've got to remap a strategy for our community from the ground up to get it moving forward. So as I began to simply to look at the needs of our community and begin to just kind of pull that apart and piecemeal it, finding cause and reason, then those 7 ideas kind of popped up. And again, you can get those at the website, BryanTaunton.com. But we've got to focus on those jobs, But how are we going to do that? We've got to focus on our education system and the needs. We're in a desperate situation with our teachers. God bless them. The teachers in our community they're subsidizing their own classrooms by $300 to $500 a year. And there's just no excuse for that. There should be a way for us to help those teachers and to be able to accommodate the kids. And we've got some organizations that have done some wonderful jobs in helping to meet the needs of the school children. But it's got to go beyond that. We need a child needs a supportive parent at home. So we need to begin to pay attention to that situation and helping that child and create or at least be in a more cohesive family unit that's supportive to them growing intellectually through school, so that we can have the workforce that we need in our community.
Due to time constraints, we don't have an opportunity to look at all 7-point strategy. You can look at that at www.bryantaunton.com and your election page on Facebook. What do you think that the greatest quality and attributes one should have in running for office, including city council?
I think the greatest quality that any individual should have when they are in public office is that they must be a public servant. We need to again be reminded so often, and this is one of the things that, let me say this. I've heard it mentioned several times around our community from various individuals, various candidates or whatever, that they would like to have that, they want that position, that gavel. I'm not sure if they're saying, I want the power, I want this, I want that. Well, anytime somebody tells me that they want the gavel, that tells me they've got an agenda that they personally want to push through. That's not our job. The job of a city leader is the job of a servant. The example that I would follow will be the example that my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ gave me, the greatest of which was in John chapter 13 when he washed the disciples' feet. His example being that we should serve from a place not of authority, not of position, but out of love and humility. Be willing to carry forth the wishes of the people when we're talking about a political setting. That's our job. And that brings me to another point. As a servant, it has been brought up, I think, in some circles, do we really need another pastor on city council? And how, if we do, how is that going to affect some of the decisions that need to be made? For instance, alcohol sales and so forth. Well, let me state this unequivocally. My job is to operate in the best interest, as a city councilman, to operate in the best interest of this community, not my personal beliefs. That being said, alcohol sales are legal. It's a legal business, and any business that comes to this community that is operating within our set ordinances, within the constraints of the law, then I don't have the ability to overrule what the city has already established is okay. And I think we need to be careful in those things. So as a community leader and being the servant, then you serve the needs and the direction of the people. We're not legislating to them.
Bryan Taunton, our guest. Bryan, a candidate for Sylacauga City Council District 5 in the municipal election coming up on August the 28th. You actually had questions from people, and we're going to get into those. Steve Garris, asked or said that everyone running in District 5 is talking about new jobs for Sylacauga and the area around us. He said, I've yet to hear a solid plan. What do you say about it, Bryan Taunton?
Well, Steve, that's a good question, and it's not one that we're going to settle here today. I can tell you that. That is something that will call for an in-depth response. But I'll try to address that for the best that I can. It's obvious that for years now, since the late 70s, 80s, when really our community was really prospering, the nation was prospering. But we had a lot of businesses in our community as I was growing up that such as your Floyd and Beasley. We had Kimberly Clark, American Color. We had all these other companies and factories out there that were employing numerous people, and the economy was good. But the problem with all of that is that nobody was looking to the future. Nobody was looking to the future with expectation of what may happen, one, to the companies that were working, that were thriving at that time, but also what may happen in consequence should we lose them and where we need to look. So now here we are. Those businesses, unfortunately, are gone. We're left here holding a bag with empty buildings and folks without jobs. And we're going to have to begin, let me just back up. We've got to learn from history to look to the future. And we've got to proceed forward with expectation and not just think of ourselves in a present situation, but think of our children.
David Tomlinson, Dave asked you to address the top 3 priorities as a council member.
Yeah, and there's so many directions, that we could go with that. But I think right now, Dave, the number one thing we need to focus on, and I'm going to put them in a rank and file order. The number one thing that we need to focus on in our city right now is the city government and finding unity in the city council. We've gone so many years without having that unity that many of the important decisions that have needed to be made have not been made because they can't come to an agreement. There's been no cohesive function. So the first thing we need to focus on is aggressively pursuing avenues to create a fellowship and unity in our city council. The other thing that we need to focus on is the need to create commerce in our community. We've got to ease the burden of new business startups in this city. We've got to get rid of some of the restrictions we can in order to make it easier for these businesses to get up and running. We've got to reduce the obstacles and the hurdles that hinder progress in our community. We've got to make every effort, Dave, to ensure the viability of the businesses that are here and help them to re-energize so that they can continue to grow and to prosper. The third thing that I think we need to focus on is the social inadequacies that are happening and that we see day in and day out in our community. We have a community of people that in many ways, and this is going to sound terrible, and I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying here, Dave, but we have a community of people that are becoming socially inept. And here's what I mean by that. They're second, third generation people that have lived on government dependence, and they don't understand the concept of working every day and what it takes to have a family and to have a healthy way of life because they've never seen it. And we cannot point a finger at those people. We cannot blame them for the situation. What we have to do is get involved and find ways to balance that. Because right now, let's be honest, in many ways, if we had a large industry that would come to our community, do we have the workforce that would be able to meet the needs of that industry as an employer? That's very doubtful. So that's something that we need to pay attention to. If we don't, then in the next 5 years, we're going to have some major problems in our community. So we've got to work to begin to balance some of those things out in our community. And there are other social inadequacies in a different way, but we're talking about the economy right now.
Other questions. Tommy Giddens, I think, echoes the sentiment of a number of voters. Their decision has not been made of actually who they're going to vote for, and a lot of things are going to determine that. And Tommy says it seems like they're trying to turn Sylacauga into a retirement community, and he notices on your Facebook page that you mentioned it. But actually, what is your feeling on this issue?
Well, I think it's Tommy Giddens that asked that question, and that's a good question, and I understand where somebody might raise concern about the idea of seeing Sylacauga as a retirement community, but let's look at it in a little different way. That doesn't mean that we simply cater to our retired citizens. That's not what we're saying. What I would say is that we begin to look at Sylacauga as being a retirement community in terms of industry. It's a retirement and retiring people. That's the fastest growing demographic in the population in our nation today, and certainly in the Sylacauga area. We need to pay attention to that. Now, I have an aging father that's dealing with many medical issues that I love dearly. And I want to provide him with the very best care that I can possibly provide him. And let me tell you something, it's not cheap. And we need more industry to cater to that population in our city. Now, here's what will happen, is as that begins to develop and to grow, that's going to balance out, Jimmy Dale, with our ability to then take some of the revenues that's brought in from those services to then begin to help to provide the amenities for our younger generation that we want to provide.
A few more minutes with Bryan Taunton, a candidate for Sylacauga City Council District 5 in the election coming up, municipal election on August 28th. The question was asked about an event that was hosted by First Presbyterian Church regarding should prayer be a part of city functions. And the question was, or the thought was, that they appreciate your stance on the matter and want to ask you about your closing statement. And you mentioned several of the social inadequacies in our community and our need to address those. Talk about that a little bit more.
Well, of course, we just briefly spoke about one in a certain way, in that having the workforce issues. The other thing is, I don't know if people are aware, but you can go double check. The fastest growing population in terms of government dependent people in the nation is those that are now claiming disability. Now, let's be honest. I'm a pastor of a church. We meet a lot of needs to people that need assistance. Every Thursday we feed, and every Thursday I have an opportunity to talk to people. And I've met husbands and wives that are on disability, that now have children that are on disability. Well, why are they on disability? Well, he's a diabetic. Well, I'm a diabetic. He's got allergies. See, we're finding people that are now, again, they're part of that system. And they're no longer have been trained to work and to have pride and to have a work ethic, and they've lost that hope, they've lost that integrity, and they don't understand the hope and the payoff of hard work. And that's something that we've got to address. And this is a generational thing. This is not a black, it's not a white thing, it's not a racial thing. This is across the board. In our community, we're seeing it more and more and more, and we've got to find a way to break that cycle. I believe the way to do that is begin to touch the lives of those children, so that we do not kick ourselves off into another generational gap. And that's not the government, that's not the federal government's job, that's not the state. I believe that starts right here at home. We've got to manage it. If we're going to grow this city, then we've got to attend to the needs of our children. And then there are other social inadequacies out there. You can't expect, we want a young lady to get a job and to get a work. She needs to, you hear white America sometimes say, well, they need to get out of those projects. They need to do this. They need to get a job. Okay. Well, understand something. when the young lady is second, third generation in this problem, here she's got a child, she's got children, she now comes to the realization later in life, I really need to turn my life around. I want things to be different in my life. I want to go back to school. I want to provide for my children. I want to get a better job, but I've made mistakes. I've got children that I need to have care for. Okay, we're going to have to step up to the plate and help this family. We can't expect her to be able to go out and work a full-time job and work 40, 45 plus hours a week, and she's got 2 small children. So we're going to have to create systems to be able to help her manage her life. Now, I mean, this is a large scale thing. It's not something that we're going to do overnight. It's not something that we're going to institute in the first 90 days if I'm elected to office. I'm just saying these are ideas. These are things that we must do to change some of the social inadequacies that we see in our community.
Very quickly, Guilford Kinsey Heath made the statement he liked the smell of KFC as he rode by, but Reef makes him sick. Said, will the people of Sylacauga have that smell for the next 100 years, or can they get federal money and clean the mess up? He said, I don't think the local and state government is doing a whole lot to fix this problem. All they want to do is to find someone to point their finger at.
Well, I'm going to be honest here, Guilford. First, thank you for the KFC plug, but that's not something that I have spent a lot of time and study in and looking at. But here's the way I understand it. The city itself has a few issues, and that is, we can petition the state, we can write letters, we can do everything we want to, but the bottom line is we have no clout there because that's not in the city. That's county, and we simply don't have much to do. And I think Claire Curtis has done a great job in creating as much uproar about the situation as we can. And really, that's just about all we can do is just continue to cry out until our cries are heard and someone comes in and makes them, or the federal government comes in and cleans the mess up. Obviously, something needs to be done. What those answers are, right now, I don't think anybody in our community has, except somebody needs to clean it up. But we got to figure out how we're going to make that happen. And I wish I could give you the answer right now, but I'm not going to mislead you. I'm not going to take you down a path that just has no real answer. And I realize in some way that may be what I've done here. But I think we just keep on keeping on. We just keep after the government to do something. Whoever goes in as the next mayor needs to be working that telephone and saying, hey, we've still got problems here. We need your attention.
Finally, a final couple of moments with Bryan Taunton, candidate for Sylacauga City Council District 5. Minute or so to talk to the voters in District 5, potential voters and those who are going to be going to the poll. Why should they vote Bryan Taunton, Sylacauga City Council District 5?
Well, without sounding arrogant, folks, I want you to vote for me for City Council District 5. Vote for Bryan Taunton for one reason only. I feel like and I believe sincerely that I'm the most qualified candidate. I know how to work and to operate in today's market. Right now, we need people on City Council who are servant leaders who are willing to hear the needs of our community. And right now, the community is yelling, jobs, 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 jobs. Okay, we've got to put something together and to begin to make that happen. I've shared a little bit about what my ideas are. I do have a plan. It means that we've got to put our feet to the pavement. We've got to aggressively go out there and pursue things. It means that we've got to work in our educational system to be able to train our children up so that they can be the workforce and grow up and want to stay in Sylacauga. We've got to increase the amount of retail in our downtown retail area. And to do that, again, we've got to reduce some of the restrictions that we have on them, allow them to flow as business owners in the marketplace that they understand better than we do. But we cut our legs off at the knees by putting so many restrictions on them. I think that as the candidate for City Council, if elected, you'll find no one that'll work any harder to serve you, and that will be there to represent your interest.
Bryan Taunton, candidate for Sylacauga City Council District 5 in the municipal election on August 28th. Bryan, thank you for taking a few minutes to join us today.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Bryan Taunton, and I would appreciate the opportunity to serve you as City Councilman, District 5. A vote for me will be a vote to provide unity in our City Council with a special focus on increasing industry and retail centers so that we may provide for the many social programs and amenities our community desperately needs. Remember, for integrity, unity, hope, service, vote for Bryan Taunton, City Council, District 5 on August 28th.